yoga mat keychains. Yoga mat keychains, that's what we are doing today. I've shared this a few times, and what I'm talking about is just this fun little craft that makes for great, great gifts for the holidays, or for really like anytime you want to give something inexpensive, meaningful, handmade to your yoga students, or whoever is in your life who might like these. They're super lightweight, so you can put them on your keychain and not have them weigh down your car keys or anything. So I love them. It's made actually out of actual yoga mat with a little charm and a key ring. If I show you here, it looks like this. I've been making these for 10 years, and the reason I'm doing this live video is really for fun, because I want to share with you how to make them and empower you to do it, because I don't have the time to make a bunch. I used to sell them in bundles of 4 or 5, and then I was getting requests from people for me to make like 50 in a maroon color, or can you make 100 of them? And honestly, no, I didn't want to. So I want to teach you how to make them yourself. Very inexpensive. If you do sell them, the profit margins are like quite high, because you can sell them for quite a bit. So the backstory of this is I was looking for little gifts for my yoga students back in the day, and I was searching on Etsy. This was like over 10 years ago. And I saw these little yoga mat keychains. They looked different than what I have, but I thought, these are like $9 each. I can make them myself. So I found the supplies, made a bunch, practiced, found the best tips and tricks for how to make these, and I'm sharing that with you today. Okay, so what are you going to need if you are doing yoga mat keychain creation? Okay, let's go through the supplies list. A lot of this stuff you can get on Amazon, and also at some like local department stores for yoga mats. So where you find your yoga mats is up to you, but I'm giving you the specifics here. For the materials that you need itself for the keychain that I've made, number one, you need a yoga mat. Yoga mat needs to be a thin, cheap mat. Something that's under $20 typically. Something that is about 3 millimeters or less. I think 4 would be kind of squishy. You need it to be thin. I have a bunch of different colors. This one I got on Amazon. This one I got from Walmart. They're usually between $10 and $20, depending on the color that you want. I think this was a mat I got online as well, just based on the color. If you really like the color, go ahead and spend like $20 on it, because you can make a lot of keychains out of one yoga mat. And they end up, I cut them out, right? So I cut them out and they become just little rolls. So I do have some links for all the equipment at ashesyoga.com/keychains. Can I write that in here in this banner? I will. ashesyoga.com/keychains. That's going to take you to my Amazon store. So I wrote that up here. ashesyoga.com/keychains is a redirect to my Amazon store that has the materials. And you can also find your own. So that's the materials list. But yoga mats is going to be the first thing. Obviously, you need a yoga mat to make yoga mat keychains, right? So pick a few colors. I've got a bunch. Red, green, purple, blue. I found that a lot of people like the blue colors. You can go basic with black, maybe your branding colors. I've sold some to some yoga studios that were orange, who had orange in their branding. So pick some colors that you like. And maybe it's just one color, maybe it's multiple. If you want a pattern on it, some yoga mats have patterns. You can decide if you want the back without the pattern or the front with the pattern. You should be able to roll them any way, right or left, and they still look like a yoga mat. You'll notice that this yoga mat, it's bumpier on one side versus the other side's a little less bumpy. That doesn't matter too much. It honestly doesn't matter too much. So if you want the bumpier side on the outside, great. If you want the not bumpy side and it's a little smoother, great. Again, you're just looking for a really thin yoga mat. Okay, beyond that, keychains. So keychains, and just giving you some tips here. The keychain, the key ring, comes with the key ring, and there's two parts to it. The key ring with the little tail, And then there's the jump hooks. They come together. The jump hook is this tiny little circle that is open on the end, so you can hook it. It's hooks to the keychain, and they come in a package together, right? So I'm on Instagram too, and I'm also on Facebook. So I mean, if I do this like a makeup tutorial, see, right? Maybe. So it's, you don't want to lose them. They're really easy to lose. So there's the jump hook and the key ring. They come together in the package. So if you buy them, there's usually 50, 100, or 200 at a time. They're pretty inexpensive. So it comes with, I'll show you two. Actually, I'll show you right here. It comes in a package like this. Inside, there's a bag in a bag. So the little bag has the jump hooks. The bigger bag has all the key rings. So it comes in a bag like this. Jump hooks are separated, makes it easy, right? Comes like this. I purchased this package probably about 20 times in the past several years. There's 50 or 100 of them. They also come in other colors like gold. I've tried gold. They also come in, there's like this kind of bronze color that I've used. And also I have a rose gold. So I tried, it just depends on what they, what looks good with the specific things. I found that gold looks really good with green. So just as a heads up, if you have green, like a green color, gold looks really good on that. And if you prefer gold, awesome. So the next thing, and this is optional, but I really like adding this, it adds a little bit more pizzazz, is a charm. A baby tiny charm. So, see if I can do this here. How can I do this? A charm. This is an ohm symbol. See that? It's a little ohm charm. It's got a hole in it, so you can add it to the keychain. And charms come in a variety of styles. Like there's a bunch of different charms here. So we've got little ohm symbols, lotus flowers, little downward dogs, little, all sorts of things. And again, if I'm doing gold, I want to make sure I get gold charms. And if I'm doing rose gold or bronze, I want to get bronze charms. I want them to match. You can see I also have, there's these like rose gold with blue. Do you want them to be more like astrological? Do you want them to be yoga inspired? Do you want them to be, you get to choose. So this is like a little person doing tree pose. Oh, upside down. Little person doing tree pose, right? Yep. So there's a bunch that you can get. I've got, little flowers, little symbols, sunshines and moons. Okay, so charms. I like adding the charm, which I didn't see when I initially saw these little yoga mat keychains. The person who was selling them didn't do charms on them. So I thought, they're kind of bland. Let's add a little pizzazz. So I add the charm to it as well. Okay, so that's what you're going to need as far as the base materials for the actual thing. Yoga mat, keychains with jump hooks, and charms. You can get a lot of charms for like $5 on Amazon. Again, here's the link. It's ashesyoga.com/keychains. I have some starting points for you of what to look up and what you can find. If you want different charms, you can get different charms. If you want the same charms, you can get the same, all for everybody. Okay, ashesyoga.com/keychains. Keychains with an S. Okay, from there, you've got the base things. Now, what are you going to need for materials for building? Well, a scissors. I actually like bigger scissors, but this is just to cut out your yoga mats. The yoga mat size, when you cut it, is about 2.5 by 3.5, or business card. No, it'd be 2.5, so a little bigger than a business card. 2.5 by 3.5, or 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. So about that. But the thing that you want to do is check the thickness, because thicker yoga mats will be more square. You won't need as long. Thicker yoga mats, you're not going to need, as much to roll. If it's super thin, you might need it might be like a 1/2 inch longer. So first, cut one out, roll it up. Don't do anything with it, but roll it up. Like take your square just to see, roll it up. And notice if it is the thickness that you want it to be. If you're like, oh, this is a little bit thick, I want it thinner, then trim a little off. Okay, trim a little off until it's the thickness or the size that you want. If you're like, oh, it's a little long, then trim a little off the edge. Or if you say it's too short, then you might have to go a little bit bigger. So go ahead and cut one out and then roll it up and see if it is the size you want. Notice, I got two different sizes here. This is a thinner yoga mat. This one is a thicker one. There's no right or wrong, but what do you prefer? Do you like the thicker look? Do you like the thinner look? Or maybe it doesn't matter to you and you make both like I do. And some are thicker, some are thinner, no big deal. This is just slightly puffier of a mat. This one is a little bit thinner. So they were about the same size. I rolled them up and they came out a little different. This is a travel mat. This is a regular mat, you know? So some of them will come out different sizes and that's okay. Okay, so they're about, again, the square is about 2 3/4 by 3.5 or so. Okay, and then from there, when you're cutting them all, I'm going through materials still. So scissors, you'll need scissors for cutting the mats. Number 2, super glue. And I got to talk on the super glue for a bit. Gluing is the last thing that you're going to do in this creation phase. You do not glue them first. Do not glue them first. Do I have to say that again? Do not roll them up and glue them first. That is the absolute last step in the process. Glue. And I say super glue because I've tried other glues. Hot glue guns do not work. Hot glue guns do not work. You can get the glue in little tubes or this Gorilla Glue in like the brush style. I prefer the brush style because it's less messy. How many times I have gotten this stuff, the tube on my fingers, and then I've ruined a mat because it sticks to my fingers in the mat and then it like peels off the mat. So then I have to toss that one, throw it away. With this one, it's easier to brush it like you're doing nail polish rather than squeezing it with the chance that it's probably going to be a little more runny. So these are okay. These are cheaper. You can maybe make about 8 to 10 mats with one tube of these. They come in like a pack of 4. If you have them, use them. But I really prefer the brush style. You can get a ton of mats out of these, out of the brushes. You don't need to use as much super glue. So the brush style, my most favorite because you can set it down, pick it up, again, like nail polish. So much better. So I really prefer the brush style for putting your mats together. And I'll show you how to do that later. But if you have the chance, get this one. Hot glue doesn't work. It just gets sticky. It like super glue, you can't tell when it dries. You can't see it. Hot glue guns, you see it when it dries and it doesn't stick as well. So super glue it up. So these mats are not going to open. They're going to be super glued together. Okay, from there you also need pliers. Pliers. Everyone should have a basic pair of pliers, right? Pliers so that you can close the jump hooks. These little tiny hook things. Don't do it with your teeth. Don't do it with your fingers. Do it with pliers. And also this can help, like you can pick them up and put them on your yoga mats. And I'll show you how to do that too. And the last thing that you're going to need, hopefully you all have one of these in a toolkit, is a nail. Just a tiny little nail or a big nail, but kind of just a nail that it's about the size of the jump hook. The same width, maybe a tiny bit bigger, because you need to punch a hole in your yoga mat before you put the jump hook on. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to punch that thing through or to get it through. So the nail really helps. I just pulled one from a toolkit. So let's get started. So those are your materials, okay? If you don't have your materials, go to ashesyoga.com/keychains. It's a redirect link to my Amazon store that has all the materials there with some different ideas. You can choose your colors. You can choose your charms. You can choose what you want. And you might find, if you buy a mat and it's not the right style, you buy another one. Okay, let's make one, okay? There's 2 ways you can do this. You can do it one at a time, like the whole process at once, or you can do it factory style. If you're making a bunch of them, I recommend factory style, which means that you do one step and a bunch of that one step, and then you take that bunch and you do the next step, and then you take that bunch and you do the next step. So I like that style. It also is helpful if you have a friend, so they can do one step in the process and you do the next. I'm usually the super gluer, which is the last step, and then if I have a friend, they're usually doing the hole punching and keychain making. So let's go through the steps. Okay. Step 1, cut out your mats. Cut out a bunch of them. Not just one, but a bunch of them. So you're gonna cut your mat, make sure you've got straight lines. If they're not super, super straight, that's okay. So you're gonna cut your mat about 2 3/4 by 3.5 inches. I don't know what that is in centimeters, sorry. So about this big, hand distance, about the palm of my hand, right? And this is, check the squishiness, roll it up and check if it's like really tight. You're gonna roll it really tight and see if it's what you want it to be. Okay, this is good. The first thing we'll do is take our nail and we're gonna punch a hole in the corner, because you notice our jump hook goes in the corner where the keychain's gonna go. So punch a hole in the corner. How far in do you go? Look at the jump hook. You want it to be about the distance of this tiny little ring jump hook. So this thing right here, you want it in about that distance, okay? So that the jump hook can go on it. Not too far, because otherwise it's not gonna loop all the way around. So I go in about, how far is that? A centimeter? Half a centimeter? Half centimeter? A 1/4 of an inch, maybe? So I go in and I take my nail and I start to punch a hole here. And I don't just punch a hole. So look, there's a hole now in the corner, about right there. Oh no, I've been logged out of Instagram. Okay, oh shoot. I was doing a live video on the wrong place. That's okay, we're still on Facebook. So I punch a hole and I wiggle it around a little bit. Just creates a little bit more opening. So wiggle it around, wiggle, 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 and then I can pull it out. And now you can't see it, but I have a hole in the corner. And I don't recommend punching a bunch of holes and then moving on, because you might lose your hole. So you've got your hole and then you add the jump hook. There's 2 ways to do this. Number 1, with your fingers, which if you've got chubby fingers, it's hard to do. Or if you fumble a little bit, or if it kind of hurts your fingers to have to do this with your fingers. So a better idea is to grab it with your pliers, grab one end with your pliers and hook it through the hole. So you got to figure out how to do that. I usually actually use my fingers. So let me do that real quick. Gonna do that right here. And you might have a little challenge. It might be, you have to find a system that works for you. But now I've got this jump hook on the corner. And what I often do is I just make a whole big pile like that. That's step 1. I make a pile and I've got like 50 of them with the jump hooks through the corners. So when they just sit there, right? Sit there, it's good. The next step in the process, after you punch a bunch of holes and get the jump hooks through them, is to add your charm and keychain. So I've got this charm here, right here. I'm gonna add it to my keychain, loop it in. I add the charm first. So there's a specific direction I like the charm. I like the charm to be away from the roll. So the charm goes on first, away from the roll. So if I were to roll this, the charm is on first, I'd roll it away. Reason being is that then the charm sits at the bottom rather than getting caught over next to the seam. So I like the charm to be away from the seam. Okay, away from the seam. Got it? So we're not rolling towards the charm, we're going to roll away from the charm. So that makes a difference. So I put my charm on first, away from the seam of where you're going to roll. Got it? And then I put on top the keychain element. This is step 2 in the process. Well, cutting would be step 1. I guess this is step 3. So cutting, step 1, adding the jump hook, using a nail, step 2. Step 3 is to add the charms and then close the jump hook. Closing with the pliers. There's really no way you can close this without a pliers. You need a pliers. If you try to close it with your fingers, ouch. If you try to close it with your teeth, ouch. So we're gonna close that jump hook and really just take the 2 ends and squeeze. And again, you'll have to find a way that works. Try to get it all closed up. So then the loop is closed and you've got your keychain, your charm, and your mat all attached. And we're almost done, okay? So that's step 3 in the process. I would do a bunch of those and just stack them up. In fact, I'll show you what I did yesterday. I did that. I did just that with all of these while I was watching a movie. I haven't super glued them yet. They all look, these are ones I'm actually going to use on my Christmas tree, I decided. So I'll tell you about that in a moment. But you can use these as Christmas ornaments. But I made a bunch. They've got the charm. They've got the keychain, the jump hook, all closed. Okay, let's talk about the super gluing process. Super gluing process. Now this is the longest part of the process. Really adding the jump hooks and doing this is the simple part. It doesn't take long at all. The super gluing process takes a little longer because you've got to hold it. And there's some intricacies involved in the super gluing to make it actually look good. Make sure that you don't get glue you don't tear off any pieces with glue on your fingers. Here's what I do. Here's the specifics. Now I've got my mat, right, with my charm. I want to put the end of the jump hook, where it closed, the seam of the jump hook, put that in towards, like roll it in towards where I'm going to roll the mat. So it's going to go in here. So I want to hide the seam of the jump hook inside the yoga mat. Okay, so I roll that. I place the keychain and charm away from that, and the seam goes in the inside because I don't want that. I don't want the charm to accidentally come off or the keychain to pull off accidentally. So the seam of the jump hook will be super glued onto the mat. Okay, so it doesn't come apart. All right, so I've rolled that in. Now I place it down. Let's get rid of this stuff. So I've got my brush. I like the brush. Like I said, I like the brush a lot better than the tube, although this is okay. So what I'm going to do now is place it on a flat surface and roll the end of it. Keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling until there's about a 1/2 inch or just the seam right here. So now we'll go here. I got to zoom this in, maybe. Put all that away. So it's just this seam that you're seeing. And another thing with the jump hook, you want to pull it upwards towards where the keychain will be pulled on. So you want it tilted towards the key ring. If it's tilted down, it's a little awkward, but tilt it, like pull it up a little bit, give it a little, pet so it comes upward, so the key ring. All right, got it. Cool. So I take this, it's this brush, this super glue. Very tricky here. I take the super glue and I put a big dollop right where the jump hook is. And then I keep spreading it around. I might do another dip, just depends on how full your super glue is. This one's a little bit empty. So I keep going enough so that it gets about a 1/2 inch or a centimeter with a lot where the jump hook is, okay? And then you roll it, and there's a couple ways to do this. You could just hold it here, applying equal pressure along the whole thing so that you don't have fingerprints. A lot of times I'll do this while sitting, so I actually pick it up and hold my fingers like this and make sure that this jump hook is, again, going in the correct direction. The risk you run when you do it like this is you get super glue on your fingers and you end up tearing the mat. Like it tears off a chunk of your mat if you get super glue on your fingers. So it's a little tricky like that. And I've also ruined a pair of yoga pants, one of my favorite pairs of Lululemon yoga pants, because I was doing this on my lap and I got super glue on my pants. It doesn't come off. So maybe lay some newspaper down, some paper, something so you're not getting super glue everywhere. So again, you can do it here and you're gonna hold, it's the longest, you're gonna hold for quite a while, like 20 seconds, okay, not too long. It depends on your material. So like this color material, this material that I used, 5 seconds and it was already adhered. Whereas this one's it takes a little longer. It depends on your yoga mat. So it takes long because you have to hold it. You're just kind of more patient, you're holding, all right. And then once you feel like it's almost or pretty much dry, which it is, set it down just so it doesn't get in the way of anything and just leave it there. Leave it there for a while, stack up a bunch, roll up a bunch, and just stack them up, and you're going to have an almost finished keychain, okay? There. So this is pretty much done. So let's say you leave it for a while, you take your whole stack and you super glue a bunch of them. So you've made a bunch and you have a ton of them. Another thing you can do, if you have a yoga mat that's like extra squishy, this pink one was super squishy and it actually tore really easily. So to avoid the yoga mat tearing through the mat when you pull on it, another trick is to take your super glue that is more of a squeezable, which I like. The brush works for this too, but you can take the squeezable one. So if you have this one or the brush, ooh. Once it's dry, you're going to move the key rings away, but on the opposite side where that jump hook is in the hole, you're going to put a little dab of super glue in that hole. Oh, shoot. So there's a risk involved. Like I just put too much on here. It's going to end up, the charm is going to stick to it. Oopsies. So you have to be very careful with that you don't put too much super glue on it, because if you do, the key ring will no longer be able to move, and the charm will be stuck to the mat. So I think I just made a mistake here in doing that. But let's just say I didn't. Just put a tiny, tiny, tiny dot on the place where the jump hook meets the mat. Okay, that's optional. That's optional if you've got like an extra squishy style and it tends to rip or you think it's going to rip. Okay, so that's how you make your mats. There really are like 4 steps to the process. Number 1, cut out your mat. Number 2, punch a hole with a nail and add the jump hook. Number 3, add your charm and your keychain and close the jump hook with the pliers. Number 4, super glue it together and let it sit and dry. And number 5, I think it's just number 4. The other things I want to mention, and I'll get to like selling them and some interesting tidbits on that. But another thing I want to mention is you can make ornaments out of these. So if you would rather do ornaments for a Christmas tree, instead of a keychain, you can add just like a loop or an ornament hook or something else. I still would recommend having the tiny little jump hooks that are open that you can close. So if you look for just jump hooks on Amazon, make sure they're open. If they're already closed, you're gonna have to open them yourself, which is kind of a hassle. So you've got a pliers, cool, but look for little jump hooks and attach the ornament hook or the loop to that instead of the keychain. Now my idea is actually just to make all these red keychains, like they're already keychains. I've got them hooked on there, but then add an ornament hook on top of it. So it's a keychain and it's an ornament. And I'm probably gonna put all these red ones on my Christmas tree because I think it would be fun. Okay, now I'm gonna get to just talking about something else, more like, what do you do with these? Who wants them? Why are they good? Okay, so these are fun because they're handmade. They're special, they're handmade. People are giving comments and I'm not even seeing this. Hold the charms in front of the mat for contrast. Oh, it's a good idea. Just pick some charms. It doesn't matter what they look like. Okay, yes, 2 3/4 by 3.5. Was that how big they were? Let me check. Some were bigger than others. What did I measure? 3 3/4 by, this was a really thin one, 2.5. So yeah, and someone said 2 3/4 by 3.5. It's between 2.5 and 2 3/4 and 3.5 and 3 3/4. Okay, so there's a range there depending on the thickness of your mat. Yes, okay. Yeah. Bought a pack of them in 2018 and they're still holding strong. Okay, so you can sell these, number 1. Number 2, you can give them to your students for gifts. People love them. They're super lightweight. It's a reminder, you can tell them even, it's a reminder to breathe. Every time you see your key ring, remember to breathe. Every time you see your mat, remember to stand taller. Every time you see your keychain mat, remember to do a down dog, come to class. Whatever it is, you can give them sort of like an intention behind the keychain. So when they see it, they think of their practice, their mindfulness, something. So they're special in that way, that you made them yourself. That's why I don't necessarily like selling like a bulk of them that I've made, because the fact that you made them yourself and given them to your students is so much more special than if they were to purchase a bunch from me, some random person on the internet, and then giving them to their students. Okay, so then, did I mess this up? Okay, so another thing, so here's this little keychain. You can sell them. So if you make a bunch, you can sell them in your studio. How much would you sell them for? You would be surprised. When I were to price these out for how much they cost to make with the charms and everything, if I make 100 of them with one yoga mat and 100 key rings and 100 charms, they're about 50 cents with the like minus the scissors and the pliers and the nail, but they're about 50 cents. They're under $1 for sure for each of them to make. People will buy these for upwards of $10. Don't believe me? Well, I used to sell them on Etsy for $8 each. I don't anymore. I don't, because I don't like going to the post office. I don't like doing the whole shipping thing. I'm not a product-based business. I don't have a storefront. I'm not interested in selling one at a time. I used to sell them in packages of 5 or in 10 or in bulk, but I just don't make enough anymore in order to keep up with demand. So now I empower you to make them yourself. You can sell them for, I would say $4 or $5 is really reasonable. So the profit margin on these things is super high because they're cheap, and then you can make a profit of $4 or $5 each one. Now, if you're selling them or you're shipping them out, let me talk about that for a moment. How do you do that? Well, I just go to my post office and send them. But how I package them is, I got a few packaging materials. So to make it fancy, I like to send more than one at a time, but if you're sending one, that's fine. So these are called organza bags. Organza bags. Yeah, you could add other things to this. You can add like a mantra, like if you want to add whatever you want. You can add little rubber bands to make it look like it's got little ties. You can customize these as much as you want, right? If you have a stamp, you can even stamp something on them that says like breathe. I probably have one, but if you have a stamp that says a word, stamp it right on there. Stamps are great on yoga mats. So if you got a stamp, go for it. So to send these out, put it in a little baggie, right? I like to be a little fancy with it. So if I'm sending, let's say 3 of them, maybe it's a package of 4. I'm sending a package of 4 and it's $20. So someone pays me $20. I package them up. Beautiful. I might add in, a sticker or something. If I have a sticker, it's going to go in there. Or if you have a business card, put it in there. If you have like a 50% off your first class, put it in there. If you've got something else that shows who you are, who made it, do that. So I'd package it up like this, add whatever you want to it, tie it up, and then you put it in a bubble wrapper, bubble envelope. These ones work great for 4 or 5. They're smaller. These ones for a little bit more. It's gonna cost the same to ship either of these because the weight is pretty much the same. So I open it up. Well, you might want to label it first. You put these in, package it up, ship it off. How much does it cost to ship something like this? Whether it's 1 or it's 5 or it's 10, it's going to cost about the same for domestic shipping within the US. So if you're in the United States or in the same country you're in, it costs about $5 to ship. So that's why I like to bundle them and send more than just one, because if you buy one for $5, shipping is also $5 plus your time. I'm not even out telling you about your time, but shipping is, I think it was between $4.20 and $4.80. It might have went up now. So I would say at least $5 to ship within the United States through the United States Post Office, the Postal Service. If you're shipping through FedEx or UPS or something else, I honestly don't know. So you can check that out if you want to. When I sold these in the past, I would wait for a bunch of orders to come in and then I'd just bulk send them all at once because the post office gets busy, which is why I don't sell them anymore, because I don't want to go to the post office. So post office gets busy. I used to send some international, and the cost for international shipping for a package like this is $14 and something cents, so it's around 15. So I don't ship international. There's probably ways that you can go cheaper, but I'm not into the shipping type of a tangible good selling. So if you're into that kind of thing, awesome. If you're selling these, you also have to consider a sales tax. Yeah, so if you're gonna set them up, make sure it's a system like Etsy or a digital or a tangible goods service, e-commerce, I guess, that has tax already built in. Or you sell it for a specific price and you handle the tax later. But it's really tough to tell where people came from, right? Where they're buying or where you're shipping. So it can get a little bit messy in that way when you're talking about taxes. If you can find a system that people order through that already puts tax on it right away, like in the process of someone buying, that's the better way to do it. What I would do is also not have people pay for shipping. So I don't say these are $20 and then you pay $5 shipping. I say these are $25. Shipping is free. So instead of selling them for 20 and saying shipping is additional, I say 25, shipping is free. If you're local, get a discount and they're $20. So that's what I would do if you're selling these. If you do decide to sell them or advertise these, use your own photos, please. Use your own photos, take your own photos. I have a bunch of photos of my yoga mat keychains. Those are ones specifically I made. So make sure you're taking your own marketing photos for that to share. This is also, a great way that you could just give them to your students, maybe at the end of Shavasana. Let's say you're just giving one out in a little baggie, or maybe just placing one next to them. Okay, notice, now that it's been a little while, this thing, my charm is stuck because I super glued on the edge right here, or where the jump hook meets the mat. I super glued it, and my charm is now stuck. Oh, and it's peeling a little bit. So this is not so great. So really pay attention to where you put that glue because it makes a difference. You want the charm to be able to be like dangly, right? Okay. What else about these? Are there any other questions? Yes, yoga inspired. Do I sell the charms? No, I don't sell the charms. You can buy them. They're really cheap. You can buy them on Amazon or really anywhere. And not anywhere. I mean, like any little charm stores. For like a pack of 150 or 100 is like $7. So go to, I'm going to show this again, ashesyoga.com/keychains, and that redirects to my Amazon store or my Amazon page that has a list of all of the materials. And if you're in a different country, look at my list for examples, but then search for them yourself. And you can find a bunch of different charms and a lot of different styles, a lot of different colors. Like I said, I've got gold. I've got silver. Oh, cups. If you can, put your things in cups. Cups really help, or little bowls, because they tend to fly away. So these jump hooks, even these tiny little things, put them in cups or bowls, or if you have condiment cups, like what you put ketchup in, that could work too. They don't need to be very big, but it's really helpful. Things typically come in little baggies, so baggies are also helpful, but when you're using them, put them into cups. Ooh, here's a question too. Could you use a safety pin instead of a nail? Safety pins are really thin, so I think a nail has a little bit of thickness to it that you would want to prefer to use when you're punching that hole into the yoga mat. Let's see, what else? Anything else? That's it. That's my, yes, jars with lids. These have lids. So all of my cups have lids. Like these cups have lids. These have lids. You screw on tops, little mason jars. Yes, cups with lids. Anything else? I don't know. If you are going to sell these, make sure you do so like before. I would say Black Friday is a great time. That's when I sold a lot. I sold these last, I think 2 or 3 years ago, maybe it was 3 years ago. And the demand was so high. And that was when my audience was even way smaller than it is right now, when this Facebook group was way smaller. And I sold out really quickly. So that isn't to say, please advertise in this group or in my Facebook group. Please don't do that. Do not do that. Your own audience, please. But people like these. They love little things like this. And to sell them for $4 or $5 each, or maybe you give a discount for the more that people buy. I used to sell 10 for $30. So they were $3 each, which is still a pretty good profit margin. And the more people would buy, whether it was 10, 20, or 30, the more likely I was able to lower the price because I only had to go to the post office once. It was only the shipping price was the same, even though I was sending more. So I was fine charging, I think minimum would be $3 each. I would not go lower than that because your time is valuable. Your expertise is valuable. It's a skill to make these and make them nice. Yeah, that's about it. So take all of these tips, put them in your pocket, and go off and make a bunch of yoga mat keychains when and if you want to. My thought was to make these, a bunch of these throughout the year and then really hand them out more towards the holidays. I've actually sent these to people in like a welcome package for those who join my higher price programs. So I used to send these to people who would spend, hundreds or thousands of dollars with me. I would send them a welcome with a yoga mat keychain, a sticker, and a branded pen from pens.com. So having merchandise or something to give to people as gifts, I love it. These for me now are just gifts. They're not, I used to sell them. I don't anymore. It's fun if you can, reach out to some studios who might want to buy them if this is something that you want to make more of. I've had some studios and some friends buy them from me, or reaching out to people who are hosting retreats. And you say, hey, I've got a pack of 20 keychains. Would you like to buy them for your retreat guests? So retreat guests put this in with, their little retreat package. So many different ways you could use them. And I haven't stopped making them in the 10 years since I started. So I still make a bunch of these. I've just found better ways. Like I gave you all these little tips about the super glue and moving the jump hook and adding the keychain first away from the seam and rolling it up first and then putting super glue after it's mostly rolled up. And the fact that you super glue them the glue is the very last thing you do, but you do the charm stuff first. So I'm giving you that step by step so you don't accidentally roll them all up first, glue them, and you don't have to glue the whole thing. You just glue the very end. And then you're like, when it's all rolled up, if you don't have the keychain and then you try to add that keychain, no good. No good. Okay, that's it. 42 minutes worth of talking about yoga mat keychains. I hope you all enjoyed, and go off and go and make your own yoga mat keychains. I'm probably going to put this to YouTube as well because I feel like I shared quite a bit of how-tos. And this is all just for fun. This is for fun. This is not me selling you. I do have programs on business and website building and YouTube and video creation. But this thing right here, yoga mat keychains, this is all for fun and games. This is all just inspired to help you and your students live a more inspired life in general. And if it means little handmade trinkets, so be it. All right. Thanks for joining. I'll talk to you guys again soon.